One of the things about doing daily videos is I have a massive repository of content that's older where you can actually see my opinions change over time. I actually said previously that Balthasar Gelt I considered an underrated lord, and while I do still consider that to be the case, I think he's fairly solid. It is, I mean, objectively true that he is just worse than almost every other legendary caster in the game, with the exception of maybe Malagor, but Malagor's probably going to get some updates. Rework in the next Beastmen DLC, hopefully, with alongside Taurox, of course. That leaves Balthasar alone, and what makes him so terrible? Well, I mean, he's a caster. He's got, you know, Lore of Metal, which is the only way you can get Lore of Metal as the Empire is to take him. He's also your only Lord-level caster as the Empire, so fills a couple of roles there. But that's literally it. I mean, he has an item to give him additional Winds of Magic, which is nice, don't get me wrong, but when you consider that that's pretty much it, I mean, he does technically get Evasion, which is a nice little melee defense and speed buff, but his stats are not very good to begin with, and even with that, I mean, he still falls short in terms of stats to a number of other legendary lords. We'll do some comparisons in the end. But yeah, just really lacking in sort of anything going on whatsoever. The Empire here, led by Wei, is going to have a Warrior Priest. He's got plenty of powder units, 3 war wagons, Free Company Militia, and handguns. A lot of infantry, not too much cavalry. In fact, no cavalry at all. He's got a cannon over here on the side, up against the Greenskins, Grom the Paunch leading the way. We've got a River Troll Hag here, 3 Black Orcs, very solid backbone, 5 Goblins, and some skirmish cav here in the woods, mix of Spider Riders and Spider Rider Archers. Gonna come up and do some skirmishing on the flank here with some Free Company, but the issue with Balthasar, yeah, like I said, the lack of anything. There's a few things they could do for him, right? And one easy thing is to rework his existing items so that they have some kind of activatable ability or even constant passive ability that you could use in multiplayer, but some nice fire opening up, just wrecking those goblins. I mean, they are just goblins after all, but still, Grom the Paunch going to charge the war wagons. This is actually really good for Wei if the war wagons can just kind of keep him in place here and let the handguns light him up. That'll be pretty solid. But so far, pretty good stuff, just kind of filtering in Greenskins forces all across the line here. Unfortunately, Free Company Militia, I mean, they'll fight back just fine against goblins. Maybe not the most cost-effective engagement for them in melee, but still, that is an engagement they're kind of meant to win out on. Here we've got an Overcast, Searing Doom. I don't know if this is necessarily worth the Overcast. You probably could have just put it tight in on the Black Orcs, but that's okay. Balthasar also rocking Gehenna's Golden Hounds here, so definitely looking for some anti-infantry damage with those 2 spells there. So far, though, Greenskins just having a lot of numbers of melee stuff, and the Empire not being able to hold out super well. Sigmar's Sons kind of get isolated here in the woods. Skirmish Cavs working on them. Got some Boar Riders as well, just kind of hanging out back there for the time being. But Fanatics get thrown through here. It doesn't look like they did too much damage, which is okay. But Black Orcs definitely taking a beating here and dishing out a beating in the front line. Just absolutely nasty. And Balthasar's going to be flying around, you know, occasionally casting spells. He's just not really going to have much of an impact, right? Like, yeah, he's got 70 charge bonus, 300 weapon strength is okay, 50 armor. He's got a little bit of magic resistance. 25% is, you know, something. It's definitely not nothing. I guess that you could consider that one of his extra special abilities. 25% missile resistance as well, but given the fact that he just doesn't have much HP, it's not like he's a super tanky character anyway. And, I mean, you compare his measly 25% magic resistance to the Fey Enchantress's, what, 70% magic resistance when she's on the Unicorn, on Silveron, just absolutely insane. And she's a Mortis Engine, and has Lore of Life, right? So, like, immediately you just see in comparison, and I wouldn't expect Balthasar to ever be as competitive as the Fey Enchantress because of those specific kind of features and abilities, like just kind of by default, by design, Fey Enchantress is likely to be more powerful, but Balthasar is just so far behind the power curve. You know, Alariel, Ariel, basically literally any other caster, even kind of hybrid melee caster lords like Tehenowin, for example, has arguably much better abilities. I mean, yes, the extra Winds of Magic is nice, but at the end of the day, like casting a handful more spells from Lore of Metal could make a pretty decent difference, but that's basically it, right? You're paying a premium, not taking a very strong lord like you know, Volkmar to get either Lore of Metal or you know, add that little bit of extra winds of magic. It just, for the Empire, they're not an army that, I mean, while they have broad access to almost all the common lores. I mean, they don't have high magic or dark magic, right? But most of the common lores they have access to. They just, you know, they don't really have a lot of magic power, so you really got to pick and choose what spells you do want to bring. And because there's so much variety, it's like, okay, you know, maybe I want to pull off some Plague of Rust shenanigans with Pistoliers, especially for me personally. There's some validity to that. But here you can see these Skirmish Cav just swarming in. Grom also comes in. Balthasar's going to throw in some Gehenna's Hounds and the Searing Doom there, but again, just really kind of low impact. That Overcast Searing Doom does use up quite a bit more Winds of Magic, and generally I like the narrower area of effect just because it's a little bit more concentrated. You see Balthasar dives down in here and just immediately getting caught up in all this stuff. It's a really rough situation. Empire line's kind of in a little bit of shambles. They were able to fend off the attack here on the flank of the Boar Riders and so forth. Cannons got taken out there, but now it's a little bit of a kite game as the War Wagons and the Free Company and Handgunners and so forth try and just wear these Greenskins out. Grom is just about gone. He is very, very low here, but the Silver Bullets and other units have no choice but to just eat it on the chin at this point. Balthasar dropping that narrow cast Searing Doom. That's going to generate some pretty decent value for the cost. And now charging in, gets a big old hit on the chin from Grom. Grom popping the Lucky Banner, which honestly needs to get nerfed. It's just a ridiculously strong item. It's like one of the major power creep lords, not even a caster, versus one of the worst caster lords in the game. Just sad day. And at the same time, the Warrior Priest, you know, as you should know from my old videos, 2 versus 1 single entity combat, the 2 usually beats the 1, and that is what we see there. So Empire staying alive by sniping Grom. Will it end up mattering? Probably not. There's still a lot of Black Orcs here, so a lot of Black Orcs here. Quite a few Goblins roaming around the field as well. This late game Orc Boar Boy Biggin wrap up too is coming in and eating these War Wagons, forcing them away, finishing off the last of these very tattered spears. You can see the Warrior Priest also involved in combat there. That anti-large AP will be pretty decent against him. 85 armor, definitely fairly solid. It's a little bit of a Spirit Leech here as well from the River Troll Hag, who looks like has returned from chasing some routing units over there, overcasting to get that long range. Balthasar still alive for the time being. The fact that he can fly is nice, don't get me wrong. But, I mean, like a High Elven Archmage can also fly and has an Eagle and probably has more weapon strength and a similar charge bonus. So, like, yeah, Balthasar, I guess what what I'm advocating for is for him, again, to just change up his items, like the, what is it, Cloak of Molten Metal. If you read the description, it seems like it should honestly be able to summon decoys, potentially. Like, when I read the lore description of the item, I'm like, oh, you could maybe have this summon decoys, and since that's now programmed in the game, I don't know, would that actually be good? Arguably not, but it would be fun, definitely. Or, you know, just having it do something, right? Like, I don't know. I'd have to look at the item descriptions again to really think about what they could do for them, but honestly, anything. Any kind of support ability, or even better, a bound damage ability, because it seems like a lot of the high-tier casters, that's one of the things they have to really set them apart, is some kind of bound damage ability. Still allows them some good offensive output, while being able to use their Winds of Magic for, you know, specific things and specific roles. Anyway, yeah, Wei ends up going down there with the ship. Unfortunate. Balthasar gets some pretty good value, but still does not pay for himself. We'll do some, again, comparisons in just a minute. Free Company Militia and the Handgunners actually do a pretty decent job. The Silver Bullets in particular, 1333 on value. War Wagons also skirmishing out some great value each. Cannon was a little bit of a tough time. Didn't have too many great targets to shoot at, but on the Greenskin side, that solid backbone of Black Orcs, I mean, didn't quite pay for themselves, but just rolled through the lines, right? A lot of these Gobos and such trading pretty well. Skirmish Cav, as always, very cost-effective, and the Boar Biggins helping to clean up at the end of the day as well. But, yeah, Balthasar, just Balthasar, okay. So, Malagor, right? We'll set Malagor to the side for the moment because he's getting updated soon. Bretonnia, obviously you have the Prophetess, again, generic hero, actually has an AoE damage, or sorry, generic lord, actually has an AoE damage ability, right? The Fanchantress, like I said, not really a super fair comparison. She's probably always going to be better than Balthasar, and that's okay. But compare how much better she actually is than Balthasar, right? So just in terms of combat stats, ignoring the fact that she has Lore of Life and he has Lore of Metal, which Lore of Metal is very good, but Lore of Life is always better. Fanchantress has more HP, more leadership. I should probably actually put Balthasar on the Pegasus. That would help the HP, actually. Okay, so Fanchantress still has more HP. More melee attack, more charge bonus, actually. Less melee defense, but, of course, better resistances. Less missile, but, okay, 60%. My apologies. I said 70% before. That was incorrect. It's, in fact, 60%. But she also gets Blessing of the Lady for 20% physical resistance, and can take Guardian, which the Empire does not have access to for some silly reason. They're one of the only factions that doesn't have Guardian. That's a discussion for another day. Yeah, 15%. So, you know, you effectively get 35% damage resistance on the Fanchantress in most builds. So, yeah, I mean, that... yeah, just... Yes, that pretty much says it all, right? And I could literally go through each faction, again, like hybrid... melee caster lords like Malekith, besides the fact he can take a freaking dragon. I mean, he's got, like, actually 3 items that are usable in multiplayer, plus a bound damage ability, right? Marathi, again, 2 items usable in multiplayer, has 2 very strong, I guess one of these is the debuff, but another debuff here, and, you know, actually has greater arcane conduit, so gets more winds of magic anyway, right? And I'm not saying Gelt should have greater arcane conduit, but just as an example, right? Dwarfs, you know, casters are arguably better. Yeah, like Azag, right? Not the best caster in the world, but still 2 items usable in multiplayer. Both really nice little AoE buffs. Makes him a great support character, right? High Elves, again, not even the legendary characters. But, like, let's compare the Grey Eagle. Grey Eagle has more more weapon strength, less charge bonus, but 120 more weapon strength. The High Elves, of course, get the martial prowess, so they have higher stats baseline. Yeah, way higher attack anyway, and the martial prowess does make up for the difference in melee defense, at least while it's active. Almost the same speed, better leadership, lower armor, and you don't get the resistances, but you do cause fear, right? And you can take literally any lore of magic. Pick one, and you still get some extra winds of magic here with this Book of Hoeth. You get Armor of the Stars to potentially be able to hide, get Stalk and Unspottable on your Eagle, right? And it's just, I mean, even the generic caster lords for other factions are better than Balthasar, honestly. It's pretty sad state. Like Tehenowin I mentioned, arguably his item's kind of useless, but it's here, you know, it gives AoE poison and charge bonus, and also he gets damage resistance and leadership while he's casting, right? So, just... Balthasar, so basic, so boring, what he's kitted out with right now. Really could be so much more. I'm hoping that it doesn't take all the way until the Empire gets a rework at some point years down the road in Game 3. Really hoping they give Balthasar some buffs before then. He kind of got majorly shafted when the Empire got their quote-unquote update when we got Marcus and everything. They didn't choose to address him at all, which is very strange. But anyway, I've rambled on long enough. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. See you next time.